Our review of Forspoken had us calling it a good game that lacked the confidence to truly lean into its strengths. It had a lot going for it, with a few flaws that did not take away from the fact that its visually stunning world and excellent combat were awesome when you got to engage with them freely. But things didn't go well for the game even before it could hit the shelves and actually have a chance at success. Frey and Cuff's conversations became the focal point of divisive smear campaigns that colored many gamers' early impressions of the title, creating the impression of bad writing and a lackluster dynamic between the two central characters.
Get up! Get up! Get up!
Look, I am imprisoned 1,000,000 miles from home in a Ren Fair nightmare. Just let me die in peace.
If you die, I'm just a meaningless bauble that they bury you with.
And I am fine with that. Just leave me alone. You know what? None of this is my fault. This is all your fucking
And tell me
fault.
how exactly this is my fault.
But was that focus on a single flaw the right way to evaluate the merit of a game that brought a surprising amount of depth to areas that mattered? Perhaps not. But Forspoken fell prey to a form of culture that could make or break the success of a new IP, looking to break into a very competitive genre. But nearly 3 years after the original release and a very solid DLC chapter later, Forspoken has finally managed to win us over completely. It's a good game with minor flaws and deserves the chance to shine just like any other title. So are you still a bit skeptical? That's alright, join us as we try to change your mind. Bad publicity. A few stray lines of dialogue, along with complaints from early preview builds of the game, showcased a lot of conversations between protagonist Frey and the mysterious Cuff as they embarked on their adventure brought one of its most well-known flaws to light, Frey's characterization. As a girl thrust into an adventure that she had no intention of undertaking, her troubled childhood and life as an orphan were great narrative avenues to flesh out her character. However, her foul-mouthed, brash nature did receive a lot of backlash once the game was released, but much of it was colored by opinions formed before that. An endless flurry of memes ridiculing the game and its writing, talking lines out of context to show an inconsistent opinion on the quality of its writing and dialogue. While we must concede that they could have been better, for sure, things were nowhere near close to being as bad as some painted them out to be.
Oh, hello, yes. Oh, perhaps you're smarter than you look.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
You, the one talking to me right now, are this... Cuff?
Cuff? It's a bit reductive, isn't it? Cuff? Pfft. Gauntlet, maybe. Vambrace. Oh, Vambrace. Vambrace. Yeah, no, it's definitely Vambrace.
No, this...
Forspoken didn't really stand a chance in the court of public opinion, not when it hadn't even been made it to players' hands yet. So another interesting facet of the situation was the game's positioning. The Luminous engine was meant to make good use of current-gen hardware to craft an experience that combined excellent visuals with solid gameplay, an effective recipe for an action-adventure title. Thus positioned as a flagship PS5 title, Forspoken was burdened with high expectations that it honestly had no hope of meeting, as it was at the time of its release. It also had to compete against other great releases like Elden Ring, which continued to stay on top of the conversation despite being nearly a year old at the time of Forspoken's release. And it didn't help its cause when its PC version brought performance issues with it, a serious offense considering the game's high price tag. Working in tandem, all of these factors acted against Forspoken, making the game quickly fade into obscurity despite all of the promise it showed. But for those who managed to play through it, things were actually a little bit different. The hidden potential of Forspoken. Lurking deep within the storm of bad press was a solid game that delivered on its vision, while also being a reasonably fun experience to boot. As a visually stunning experience that aimed to make traversing its open world as fun as possible, while also delivering an action-packed adventure, Forspoken wasn't too shabby. For starters, its unique brand of magic and parkour was both simple to use and quite a sight to behold. Frey's newfound powers were put to excellent use here, allowing her to leap, bound, and soar across the world with reckless abandon, in a traversal loop that we still find quite addictive. It's always great when an open world title has you favoring actual travel instead of teleporting between locations via fast travel after all. And then there was the combat. Dive deep enough into Frey's arsenal of skills, and there was a lot to like, just waiting for players to discover and use. Elemental attacks, crowd-controlling AoEs, attacks that made good use of Frey's mobility, and a few very cool abilities like a rapid-fire lightning gun made the combat system a real treat for players who liked a meaty action-focused gameplay loop. And of course, the visuals help things along, with spells bringing some very well implemented particle effects to the table, while the world's desolate state and the imposing stature of bosses like the Tantas were all quite engaging and helped sell the story that was on offer here. And speaking of the story, Frey's character arc was often written off as a generic coming-of-age story, but did actually make sense from a narrative perspective. Her rough life and a distinct mistrust toward the world around her made her aversion towards her destiny make sense for the most part at least. We'd probably be swearing at the top of our voices too if we were pulled away from our lives and asked to help save a kingdom we'd had no stake in before. Her dialogue, even the weaker bits of it, yes, fits a lot better when taken against the narrative backdrop that the game sets up, as opposed to a few isolated clips that do not convey the nuance between their lines entirely. However, it wasn't all rainbows and butterflies with Forspoken, and the game did have its issues. In the interest of fairness, we're going to take a look at those too here. Room for improvement. While Frey's lines weren't all bad, there were a few instances where her modern sensibilities didn't merge well with the game's fantasy setting. Her dialogues did have a few genuinely awkward lines, a problem that was made more evident thanks to how chatty she was with Cuff, and the constant repetition of scripted banter between the two. They soon became an annoyance instead of a fun way to flesh out the story's leading lady and her companion. And while the world we got to explore was indeed stunning, the things we got to do in it soon became repetitive. Too much of the open world relied on outdated methods of structuring progress, and the side content delved too deep into generic objectives to make it actually worthwhile. This was an issue that combined with the game's pacing to become quite a hindrance to a good time. With most side content requiring Frey to clear out a lot of enemies, the opportunity to put the game's combat front and center was always there. However, with a lot of important abilities hidden away behind important story encounters, that opportunity was wasted in favor of a story that spent too much time with exposition and too little time allowing its players to actually enjoy the adventure it was trying to involve them in. The pacing is essentially egregious in the game's opening hours, and it's going to be a while before you get to the parts of it that are actually good. Minor performance inconsistencies also hampered the game's success. However, none of these issues deserved the fallout that followed the game's release, an unfortunate situation for Luminous Productions, despite the story expansion bringing a more focused experience, a stronger story, refined combat, and the general impression that it was what the entire experience was actually meant to be. A couple of months was all it took for the studio to be merged back with its parent company, a move that was meant to strengthen future AAA development, but potentially intended to offset the critical failure of Forspoken and the high cost of maintaining the Luminous engine in the absence of the means to justify its presence. Forspoken might have saved Luminous from its fate if only it had been allowed a fair perception of both its strengths and its weaknesses by the gaming world at large. Its failure to garner a response that could justify the costs associated with its engine has now shut the door on a potential sequel that could address all of the issues that the IP's debut brought to light. It's honestly a sad case of wasted potential, and an unfortunate situation for a game that might have had a better time of things on the commercial front with better marketing, positioning, and a stable launch. But alas, Forspoken will remain a title that's easy to recommend, but unlikely to gain the appreciation it deserves for the things it manages to get right. But if you're willing to look past its flaws, it might be a great choice for the holidays if you have nothing else to play and have no plans. So what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead and share them in the comments below. And if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. We upload every day and would really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.